Virtual Financial Teen Prosperity Continuing Education Library. Today what we're going to talk about is the Advanced IUL Overview. Now there's another video in the series that's an introduction IUL Overview, obviously a more basic presentation. We're going to get into some advanced concepts today. First thing that we look at is the fact that there are two tax systems in America. It's not a new concept. Judge Lernhan from 1872, up to 1961. Two tax systems in America, one for the informed that pay lower taxes, one for the underinformed that pay higher taxes. The typical plans that we look at, the qualified plans, like the 401ks, the 403bs, the IRAs, are the underinformed. It's time to become informed. For the most part, corporate pension plans are a thing of history. The ones that are still around, many are massively underfunded. So we have two basic options here, two basic choices. Qualified, the typical IRA, 401k that we're accustomed to, or the non-qualified that we label here as a personal pension plan. First thing we want to look at is the primary risk of the qualified plans. First thing that we look at is market losses. So you can see here that the white is the years, the yellow is the percentage of loss, and the red is the years for the index to recover. An average loss of 47% occurs every 11 years. So we're not going to escape these market downturns in our lifetime, but we can shield ourselves against the market losses. Most recent history, we started this decade at 2000 with back-to-back market down years. The NASDAQ bubble burst, and we had 9/11, the terrorist attack. 32% loss, 6 years to recover, not even fully recovered when the mortgage market blew up, caused a great recession, almost a 50% downturn in the market, severe bear market, 5 years to recover. That entire decade is a lost decade in terms of percentages, time periods, and if you were close to retirement around that 2007 mark, let's say with $1 million 401k or IRA, you experience a 50% loss, that's a direct heavy hit to your standard of living because you don't have the time to recover. Let's also now talk about the high management fees. When you talk about management fees, most people, when we look at the 401k, when I talk to people who own a 401k, they don't know much about it. They don't know that it costs money to own the vehicle. They don't know what the average mutual fund cost of their 401k is. They don't know what the disclosed or hidden fees can add up to, easily eat up 30% or more of the portfolio. They really don't even know what they're invested in. So they've got this vehicle they don't understand. They're going to blindly throw money at it with a hope and a pray mentality. Things are going to work out. Well, you can see for the average American worker, it's not working out. There's been some final rules to improve the transparency of fees and expenses in these 401k-like retirement accounts. However, anytime you have a big bloated machine like Wall Street that makes a ton of money off these, they want to make sure the lobby money tries to keep things as is. But as of just a few years ago, there have been some final rules to improve that transparency. And like we talked about, it allows to compare apples-to-apples comparisons of fees and expenses. We also want to take into consideration the future tax rate increases. This is an important part that we need to understand what the future taxation environment will most likely look like. Well, you can see here from the 70s all the way up through future forecasts, percentage of GDP, and some bigger programs that normally eat up a decent amount or percentage of that GDP. Everything, is differentiated in terms of the programs, but everything stayed pretty constant for a period of time. Now, when you look into the future, what happens is you've got this explosion. That blue right there is a net interest on the debt. So just like we as a household have to service our debt, so does the government. And the amount that it takes to service that debt going into the future explodes as a percentage of GDP. That money will have to come from somewhere. They'll have to turn on their citizens through the taxation environment, which brings us back to the very first slide. Are we on the prepared or unprepared side of the tax camp? If your current tax rate is this, and your estimated future tax rate is this, and you're most likely going to have a bigger account for retirement, tax deferral does not make sense for you. It's great for Uncle Sam, creates an account receivable, but not so great for you. Because how will the government make up for this shortage? They can raise taxes, they can change tax brackets, they can eliminate tax deductions, Doesn't matter whether it's one or a combination of these three things. Basically just boils down to a shakedown of the American taxpayer. And it doesn't matter your party affiliation. You should feel like that you can spend your money more efficiently than the government can spend your money. The last thing we'll look at as far as the primary risk of the qualified plans is the longevity risk. Will I outlive my money? You know, there's a large part of a population and generation right now facing that exact problem. AARP quote, 61% say they fear depleting their assets more than they fear dying. So it's definitely a fear. There's a safer alternative. There's a better way. You know, a lot of the people out there, we don't have advisors, agents, CPAs on our payroll. So what we do is we want to follow the smart money. Well, as of just a number of years ago, 22% of this investment was owned by the wealthiest 1%, and over 55% of this investment is owned by the wealthiest 10%. So what does the smart money know, and why are they doing this? Well, they know they've got a tax-free retirement savings and a tax-free death benefit rolled into one plan where they can access tax-free income for now or retirement and have that tax-free death benefit to protect the family. Created by 3 congressional acts, TEFRA, DEFRA, and TAMRA, it's tax-free under the IRS code 7702 and 72E. So now what we're going to do is flip it and not talk about the primary risk of the qualified plan, but now we're going to talk about the superior attributes of the tax-free plan. We talk about, first of all, no market losses. Losses are controlled by a cap and a floor. So what exactly is a cap and a floor? Well, the client is going to give up some of the gains on the upside in order to shield themselves and guarantee themselves against zero loss. So essentially what we're doing is collaring ourselves into a position of X and Y, meaning the floor and the cap as far as interest rates we're going to receive each and every year, which creates a stair-step approach which capitalizes on compound interest, rule of 72, etc. Now, a lot of people say, when I see this, I don't want to give up gains on the upside. That's a natural psychological reaction. However, when you put things into perspective and see end results, you'll be able to understand why it's way more important to shield ourselves against the losses and participate, you know, in most of the upside market potential gains. So that's exactly what we're going to do here. We're going to look at $100,000 over a 15-year time period, illustrated in 2 different scenarios. First scenario is the S&P 500. So there's the line of the S&P 500. It was a little bit of a roller coaster ride. We'll take a look at that in just a minute. Versus the green line, which is an IUL with a 0 floor and a 13% cap. So the first thing we want to do here is illustrate the floor. So like we talked about earlier, we open this century with back-to-back-to-back market down years. The direct investment into the S&P starts to crater. This IUL investment with a 0 floor neither gains nor loses. It just stayed steady. Now what we want to do is we want to look at the cap. In 2009, the S&P had a great year, returned 23.5% basically. We were capped out at 13%. So it looks like we gave up 10 percentage points, which we did, but we only have to look back 1 year. Most of the robust gains in a market are on the backsides of down years or down periods of time. So in 2008, we had a 38.5% decline. Well, to make the math a little easier, if we lose 40%, we need a 67% gain just to break us back and get back to even. Well, if we take that into consideration, yes, we gave up 10 percentage points, but you'll see in just a minute, we are far ahead, outpacing the direct investment into the S&P 500. So let's take a look at how this panned out. So a direct investment into the S&P, $100,000 over a 15-year period of time, has returned 3.5%. Your $100,000 has grown into $125,653, and that growth of $25,653 is a taxable event. Now we look at the IUL, grown to almost an 8% rate of return. That $100,000 has grown into $241,500 basically, and by being able to access that with loans, becomes tax-free. So when you take a look at this, it's not a small divergence in returns, throwing the tax implications of both vehicles. This starts to open eyes and minds to vehicles they might not know were available, but might make a better option as a self-directed pension with some other added benefits in there to get people to their end goals. Another way that Wall Street tricks the retail community is what's called a average return. The only thing I care about for myself and my clients is what's happened to my money. Well, let's take a look at $100,000 invested into a rip-roaring asset class that doubles up. It's up 100%. So So we've doubled our money to 200 grand. Now in that same asset class the next year, it's typical for it to have a correctionary period. Well, if it's down 50%, from the beginning of year one to the end of year two, we've had no real growth of our money. Wall Street wants you to look at it this way: 100% rate of return, 50% loss, 50% divided by 2 years, average gain of 25%. Really, our money's done nothing. We're also going to need to talk and explore the fact that there's significant lower management fees in the IUL. So when you take a look at an alternative investment like a 401k versus an IUL, both starting with zero, and over a period of time, what happens with the contributions, with the planned income withdrawals, to see exactly over a period of time, matching up side by side, which will pan out better. First thing we look at is the cumulative fees paid. In the alternative investment, client would have paid about $182,000 in fees. Now in the IUL, $96,500. So that's a 53% savings in fees that we would have paid. And that's $85,410 less in fees. But don't forget, if there's less in fees, that money is still in the account. It's growing, compounding, accumulating. So it's got a double advantage there. Now we also look at the tax-free income. Remember, you have deferred your taxes in the alternative investment, so you need to produce a gross retirement income number, back out the taxes to get to the net number. The IUL is an after-tax dollar vehicle. What you need to produce is there. There's no taxation that you have to be, weary of. Lifetime income. So people are worried. Remember, people are worried. Am I going to outlive my money? Well, under this scenario, Mr. and Mrs. Client, with the alternative investment, you would have run out of money at age 76. Under the IUL, we have illustrated income through 110. Now, most of us are not going to live to be 110, but it does illustrate what people are looking for, lifetime income. So add this up to the side over here. We saved $76,500 in taxes, $85,400 in fees, $558,000 more in net income. Still have that death benefit of $245,000. It's almost $1 million advantage over the alternative investment in this scenario. Two things happen when you bump this 20% tax rate up to a more normal historical standard of 30%. Now we need to produce, of course, more gross retirement income to get to that same net number. And now, Mr. and Mrs. Client, you're going to run out of money earlier, 70 or 71. Flexible contributions. Don't forget, yes, this is an insurance vehicle, but depending on your age and your medical rating, you've got that unit cost of insurance. Most of the time it's going to be a small sliver of the money, with the rest of the dollars going towards growth and accumulation. So how is it that the cash value savings continues to grow even as you take home retirement income? Well, how is that possible? Well, it's possible because that policy that you have is the collateral against any loans that you take. So you're borrowing, but your cash value continues to grow even as you borrow. Well, let's compare that against a typical way that people, sometimes in retirement, access money. And that's a mortgage. So we go into retirement. Let's say we worked on paying down the house. It has no mortgage, worth $200,000. Now it appreciates 10%, so we've got a total of $220,000 in equity. Now we need money. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a loan against that property. We borrowed $100K from the home plus interest. What has that done for us? It's essentially created two things. It's created an immediate debt obligation that has to be repaid. As soon as that loan is finalized, the monthly payments kick in. Also, what's happening is that interest associated with the loan is eating away at the equity in the property. So the income that you borrow is not repaid until after you pass on. Remember, you spent that time with the cash value savings, the accumulation period, and then you go into withdrawal periods for retirement. At the time of death, what's going to happen is there'll be subtraction of the retirement income, loans, and any applicable interest that was charged with those loans, and the difference or the balance goes as a tax-free death benefit to the heirs. Now, I will tell you on the Transamerica Global IUL, the interest associated with that, the first 10 years somebody has a policy, the associated interest with any loan during that particular period of time is 0.75, 0.75%. From year 11 on, it's interest-free loans. One more time, we're going to line them up side by side. The taxable 401k qualified versus the tax-free plan. Let's compare the guarantees. Risk, 100% risk of market loss in the qualified. Guaranteed 0% risk of market loss in the tax-free plan. Taxes, guaranteed you'll pay in the qualified, guaranteed tax-free in the tax-free plan. Gains, guaranteed are not locked in the 401k, guaranteed locked in on an annual basis with a tax-free plan. Death benefit, guaranteed taxable in the 401k qualified, guaranteed tax-free, the tax-free plan. Fees in the 401k qualified plan, not fully disclosed, not transparent. The fees in a tax-free plan, very transparent, fully disclosed. So this is the end of this presentation today. I hope you've gained some value into what the IUL can potentially do for the client. Remember, the Transamerica Global IUL now has the ability in 47 out of 50 states, California, New York, and New Hampshire being the only 3, to add in the no-cost upfront living benefits riders. When you do that, it creates a health and a wealth plan, the holistic approach to financial planning, and it will cover them no matter what happens. 3 big things that can happen. Premature death, you've got the death benefit that goes to the beneficiaries. If we get sick or we get hurt, those living benefits will come in and provide capital during that particular period of time. Then, the third thing, we all hope we're going to live a nice, long, healthy life. If that's the case, we need retirement income with tax advantages and leverage. If there are living benefits in the IUL and there's never a life event that would trigger a payout, then those would never be paid for inside the policy.